Sup? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 120, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and on YouTube, just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. If you're watching, you are already there. So please be sure to subscribe, give the video likes. I appreciate that. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me there. And please subscribe to this podcast on whatever podcast feed you listen to podcasts on. That's appreciated as well. TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com is the website for all things related to this show. It forwards directly to my link tree, of course, with a bunch of links. Good stuff on there. Definitely. AdamChoit.com is my website for all my personal stuff if you want to follow me and then check out some other projects and things that I'm working on besides this show. But for today's episode of this podcast, we have singer, songwriter, guitar player, and slide guitar player, Angela Petrilli. A true student of music, she tells me all about her musical journey from learning about classic rock and the blues from mom and dad, to grunge and alternative rock, to country and Americana with her musical partner at the time in Roses and Cigarettes, the late Jenny Pagliaro. Angela's journey is an inspiring one, as she picked up the pieces after losing her amazing and talented friend, which has led her all the way to the release of her EP, her first EP, The Voices, by Angela Petrilli and The Players. We share a love for blues, rock, soul, and slide guitar, and of course, Derek and Susan. And we dig in on all of that. So let's just get started. Here's Angela Petrilli. So it's good to see you today, Angela Petrilli. How's it going?
It's great, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. Things are good. Happy to be here talking about one of my favorite bands. This is great.
Oh, I appreciate your time for sure and for joining me. And it's cool to talk to a local. We'll get right into it. You're from Los Angeles, born and raised. I'm not, but I've been in here. I've been in this town a long time now.
Yeah, born and raised, and one of the rare unicorns, as they say. So.
Yeah. So what are your let's get right into what are your earliest musical memories? Because on this podcast, I kind of don't ask necessarily for your life story and or whatever, but I kind of want to know your musical story and your musical life and then life kind of sprinkled in, through your musical journey, I'm sure. So tell me about what, a little bit, maybe your family background and what was playing, earliest songs and things that jump out at you musically from real young, the youngest.
Yeah, sure. My mom plays a little bit of guitar, and I remember that she would play for my brother and I when we were really little, and she had this big Guild acoustic guitar, and I remember watching her play and going, I can do that. It just felt like a very natural thing, and music was constantly on. My mom's from Detroit, my dad's from here, from LA, and my mom's a big Zeppelin fan, Eagles, Queen, like a lot of that, Bob Seger. So a lot of that kind of classic rock was playing a ton. My dad's a big music appreciator and absolutely loved listening to the blues. So there was a lot of, Stevie Ray Vaughan and that type of stuff that was constantly playing around the house, and a lot of singer-songwriters too. So I was very lucky to have a lot of that kind of music surrounded, at a very young age. Fantastic. And I still listen to a lot of that stuff today. And it was a really beautiful foundation, especially, as I was coming into my own as a musician, being inspired by a lot of that music. So very grateful for that.
You probably don't remember a time where music wasn't playing. It's like, it was probably always a part of your life, even when you're probably 3, 4, 5 years old. It's just like it all kind of blends together in a certain way, I'm guessing. Is there something
correct.
to that? It's
Absolutely.
Like you don't know if you heard the Beatles before Led Zeppelin, or you just kind of heard it all from your parents and just just grew up with all of it.
Exactly. A hodgepodge of good music.
And you started playing guitar at 9. You must have expressed interest, or was handed to you, or how did that all come together?
Again, just watching my mom play when I was little and just really intrigued by it. I wasn't sure I would be, a guitar player. I was first, gravitated towards drums, and they're like, how about guitar? You can bring that to the beach. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was enough coercing that I needed. So they got me a little guitar, and I remember it just being like breathing to me. It was just really, really natural, and I just loved it, and it brought me a lot of joy.
Yeah, what's that, what's that like? Is like guitar. So many people. I mean, I played. I mean, just for fun, but it took me a long time just to, or a fair amount of time to get semi comfortable with it. Just like the physical aspects of it. So it's like I always am amazed by people. Like it takes a lot of work, obviously, to get to a certain level and the level that you're at. But like there is something to be said for like talent and like it must, yeah, it's like breathing. You said that must be a great feeling, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Like I want to I want to hear about that feeling, what it feels like to
Yeah.
effortlessly do something so cool as like playing an instrument.
The first thing that really comes into mind is just very natural. It just felt very natural. Again, it just felt like breathing, and it was an extension of the body. You hear that all the time, how the guitar is like the extension of the player, and I so feel that even still when I play, and it's just such a love to be able to do it and to express yourself in that way. It's quite a gift to make, music out of a box with strings on it. So, pretty cool.
Someone once told me that we are like art, like as an artist like yourself, like you're in a sense a vessel for music and like the creativity, but the way you describe the instrument, I think it's like an interesting juxtaposition with that, and that your instrument is an extension of you, but you are a vessel for the music. I think that's an interesting way to kind
Yeah,
of look at
it's a
those
beautiful
things.
symbiosis of stuff and music, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm thankful to do it every day, even
I
on the
tend
tough days.
I tend to ask people this question a lot because this is like like obviously this music was popular with your dad and lots of dads and myself, and but like it's not, you weren't like, were you into top 40 music, and how did you like, or popular music, or what your friends were into, and how did they react, like even from like 9, 10, 11, 12 into your preteens and teens, how did other people react to you pursuing, I guess, sort of an unusual, maybe less so in Los Angeles, but like it sounds like you were not as much into top 40 or popular, your peers.
Not really. No, I remember being teased as a little kid liking the Beatles and not liking the Spice Girls as a kid. I remember that very, very vividly. I'm like, well, Rubber Soul's a great album, and I don't care what you think. Like, I think this is great. Um, yeah, and I remember in high school, friends of mine would, go through my iPod at the time, just and not knowing who most of the artists were. It was pretty funny. And in college, like, who's Muddy Waters and who's Howlin' Wolf, like the other folks you need to check out. So I've always, I guess, been on a little bit of an outlier for a part of my life. But then you find your people, and you find friends who are inspired by that music too, and you build a really beautiful little community. So it was only for one time where people thought my likings in music were strange, but not so much these days.
I could definitely relate to that. I suppose, just as a fan, not even someone who played guitar at that age. Um, yeah, tell me about, because I see here you learned from Jimmy Scott. He was, or tell me about him and other prominent teachers or influences, in terms of
Yeah,
that mentorship that you've had in your life, in early
yeah.
life.
Jimmy, he was and is a dear friend and continues to be. I call him all the time, with guitar related questions, or hey, when you were on tour, like how'd you deal with this and this and this, or when you were recording, what did you find was really helpful, like questions like that. He's still a big part of my life and still a mentor to me in many ways. I was a student of his. I believe I was, gosh, maybe 10 or 12 years old, and studied under him for quite a while. And he really taught me not only how to play, but how to listen and how to be a part of a band and how to be a band leader and how to be part of an ensemble, how it's not always about the guitar player in a band. It's how all of the pieces work together. And I think, that's something that Tedeschi Trucks does incredibly well with, like a 12-piece band, however many of them there are. It's such a beautiful thing how they create such a beautiful atmosphere, and it's because they are listening to one another, and that the song and what is going to best serve the song is the most important thing. And that is something that I know Jimmy really taught me, amongst many other things, but that is something that really comes to the forefront of my mind, is like, what is going to best serve the song? And that is what needs to be played.
And that is the music that I personally tend to gravitate to. And as you were talking, I couldn't help but also think of Tedeschi Trucks Band, and especially Derek Trucks as a band leader, and how his mentality, despite having virtuoso skills on slide and or otherwise, like always has the intention. And I think this comes across on every single thing the man plays, whether it's a jam or recording with his band, with others, is all about serving the song and playing with others, and listening obviously is a big part of it with him and with them, and just like hearing him talk about it, well, the slide stuff especially, like trying to emulate and imitate vocal melodies and runs and things like that. And
Right.
like I tried it, like I think that's like hard to do, and I'm trying to do a little bit more of that myself as like a listener. But yeah, that's commendable. And I don't know, I just tend to gravitate towards that type of music. I'll let you continue on with like the chronology, I guess. Like tell me about like more about like 12, 13, 14 years old. What music are you listening to, playing? You're getting more organized with your playing, bands
Sure.
or otherwise?
Sure. At that age, it was a lot of rock. Being from LA, we know that K Rock is a massive station out here in Southern California. So at that age, and even through high school, it was a lot of Pearl Jam. Audio Slave was on at the time and kind of just started to do their thing. Lots of Sublime and lots of Incubus and those kind of bands. That alternative rock, I remember, was incredibly impactful for me, and the grunge stuff was very impactful as well. So there was a lot of that going on in my first like formidable years of playing. I didn't really get into blues till about college, and really, oh yeah, I remember my dad listening to this kind of stuff. I'm like, hey, can you tell me a bit more about these guys and who they played with, and that type of thing. But it started with rock, and then through rock I found blues.
That's also similar to my journey, even just as a listener. And I'm sure your dad was super excited and thrilled when you came to him
Very thrilled.
and started bringing up all his favorite artists and
Oh
bands.
yeah. Yeah, he was very thrilled. He was very happy about that. So
Yeah, tell me more about maybe what did you start recording? I know, Roses and Cigarettes eventually became a thing, but what was kind of leading up to then?
before then, I was just playing in a lot of different bands and kind of trying to find my voice. And I think I still am in a lot of ways. But in those years before Roses and Cigarettes, playing in a lot of different bands, a lot of jam nights, really trying to hone in on the craft. And again, it's something I still continue to do to this day. I'm a constant student of the craft. And yeah, it was just getting better technically was that phase in my life. I wasn't particularly interested in songwriting at that time. It was more understanding the guitar, and in the ways that the instrument felt foreign to me. I wanted to understand and research more and understand, well, why does that feel foreign, and how can I really embody this as a player, like those types of things. So it was, and also meeting a bunch of different players too was something that was really important and continues to be in my life. Just meeting a lot of different people and getting a lot of different perspectives and hearing how other players play and why they play the way they do and those sorts of things. So I was like a sponge really at that time when I look back.
I was just thinking of the word sponge. I was going to say that it sounds like you were a sponge and a true student of music. And like, I feel like that's a quality, just like wanting to love the daily grind and dive into the craft and the networking. That sounds like a benign or whatever term for that. But like connecting with other musicians seems like a big thing related to that as well. And it's interesting because like I was thinking, oh, maybe how did you see yourself? Because like that, I feel like you probably didn't you just saw yourself as a sponge and someone wanting to learn. Like you weren't like, I'm setting out to be a lead guitar player, or I want to create even a certain sound, like I want to play Stonesy type music, or like I want to be a lead guitar player, or I want to just be a rhythm guitar player. It sounds like you just wanted to like dive as much as you can into the limitless knowledge that is like capable on a
Yes.
guitar.
All of that. I just wanted to learn about all facets of that instrument, and I still do. I wasn't like, I want to be the best lead guitar player ever. It's like, rhythm's pretty great too. Like, I want to learn about this. Really, again, it was about how I can best serve a song, how I can best serve a band, how I can be a good bandmate. Those were the types of things I was really honing into at that time.
Yeah, I just want to sound like Mick Taylor or any of those greats. I just want to just make
Hey,
how do I sound like Billy Gibbons? How do I do that? I just want to like do that. But those are musicians that are super talented and they do all the things that you're describing, as well, as far as just like fitting into a great bands or, with their fellow musicians. I guess tell me about Roses and Cigarettes, because that's more. I did dive into some of that as well, and that's more Americana and more country, which is a departure obviously from grunge and rock, and then but maybe it's like was it a bridge? Well, I'll let you get into it, but it sounds like I'm just thinking that may have been a bridge back into the bluesier stuff that you're doing today. But I'll kind of let you continue here
yeah,
the journey.
absolutely. So with when I met Jenny, it was in 2013. So yeah, it was about 10 years ago. And she was very much she loved country music, and that was very inspiring to her. And we had a lot of overlap in terms of like the singer-songwriters that we enjoy, um like Ray LaMontagne and Jason Isbell and stuff. So there was a lot of overlap in that singer-songwriter regard, which is really cool. And we never forced anything when we wrote together. It's just okay. So I had my influences, and then she had she had hers, and it's like, okay, well, let's see, what happens here. And it was a really beautiful time in my life, because it felt very natural to write songs with her, and it was something like, oh, this is a new skill. Again, going back to being that constant student. I was never really interested in writing original songs, and wow, this is like kind of fun. I really like this. And I'm forever grateful to her in that, for sparking that in me. And again, it was a beautiful time, and we got to do a lot of amazing things, and very proud of the songs we got to write together. And yeah, it was a very beautiful time in my life.
And that's Jenny Pagliaro.
Correct, Jenny
And she
Pagliaro.
and she
Yes,
sang in Roses and Cigarettes, and
yes.
you both play guitar. What were your various
So
titles?
I did background vocals, and she did the lead vocals, and we had an incredible band uh, backing us up, and who were just big brothers to us. Our buddy Mike Lyons, who was the bass player and producer, and my buddy Vic Vanacore was the drummer, and Dave Raven was the drummer on the first album. And just, again, just really, really grateful to those guys. It was a lot of fun, and it was it was a great ride. Really look back on those times very fondly.
I feel like I probably know the answer to this question. The answer is probably going to be all of the above. But in terms of like the songwriting and the process, was it something that you guys would just come at, from whatever worked, and it was from song to song? This was something that you came up with, this is something that she came up with, and you got feedback? Did you sit down and write lyrics together? Did the music come before the lyrics? Well, it's kind of like the order or the process. Is it just like chipping away at each song, and the origins of it may have come from different ideas, be it lyrically, musically, or otherwise?
It is indeed all of the above. So what we would do a lot of times is we would go to our corners. I would have a really cool riff or a really good progression, and she would have this set of lyrics. She's like, I don't know, the music that can go along with this. And sometimes, she had a melody in her head, and I'm like, all right, well, sing that to me again. I would try and find the chords. And other times it was just the words, and they were really beautiful. I'm like, wow, well, let me see what kind of chords are inspired by these words that you've given me. So we really, it was very, very collaborative in that sense, where we would check in with one another. And it's like, all right, let's try this. Okay, now let's go back, and then come back and see like what this sounds like. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. This is kind of maybe a dumb question, but what's harder to write, verses or choruses or hooks or whatever, in terms of, I guess, something, yeah, like lyrically even?
I mean, speaking from my point of view now, with Angela Petrilli and the Players, with lyric, or with like verses,
Yeah,
or
lyrically and
choruses.
musically. Yeah, for
Yeah,
both.
I know with this go round, I wanted to do something that was slightly uncomfortable for me. So a lot of times the verses and the words came first, and it was up to me to figure out chords to go on top of it. Yeah, I want to say the majority of them it was written in that way. I know the tune Red River, the music was written first, and it was up to me to like find the story in there in that music. But a song like Ghost Inside a Frame, the words came first. So then I had to find the chords that complemented the words and the story that was being told there. So it's yeah, it's funny. Each song has their own unique way of presenting itself to you, and then it is up to you as the artist to kind of chip away and be really honest with it too. Like, okay, is this absolutely necessary? Again, I always go back to what is going to best serve the song. Always. If a song doesn't need a bunch of chords, I don't put a bunch of chords on it. Like the song The Voices is that was another song where the lyrics were written first, and the story is so impactful that's being told there, that those two characters back and forth having that conversation, that optimist pessimist conversation. I didn't want a lot of chords underneath it. I wanted that story being told in that conversation to be in the forefront. So that song has 4 chords. That's it.
As do
That's it.
many great ones, and many great ones have even 1 or 2 less than
Right?
that, for
Right.
sure. It sounds like, and it looks like, and from what I gather, Roses and Cigarettes developed a pretty damn good following. So that must have been like fun to grow your profile as a musician.
Yeah. It
So
was
what did that feel like to I guess have some success, so to speak, in that
it,
regard?
it was beautiful to have that little idea that we both had, and to see it grow into something that was really bigger than the both of us. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And we worked so hard on the social media side of things, and there were some days and some months we played 8 or 10 shows a month, and it was we were really hitting the pavement pretty hard. And then once Jenny was diagnosed with cancer, it kind of took a turn, and we had to really look at, okay, what is again going to best serve her in her journey through this illness, and how can we still maintain the love in this band, and the music that we're creating, and this community of really amazing people who were so supportive throughout the entire 6.5 years that we were a band. Yeah, we're really that was really grateful. We always really felt that support. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you transitioning into the less fun times in your life, because I was going to ask about her being sick and what that was like, and I mean, was it even? I mean, I'm sure very challenging and very hard and sad and ultimately tragic. But how did the music itself fit into that time in your life? Was it even somewhat inspiring to like knowing that you guys obviously we're probably wanting to live each day to the fullest and be the most creative you can? Did it almost, propel you guys? I don't know if that's the right word, but I'll let you speak to that time period in your life and stop
Yeah,
rambling.
it I know it brought her so much joy when she was sick and not feeling well. Music was really a beautiful thing for her to look forward to, and again, it inspired her to be better, and to tell the things that were within her heart. It was a really beautiful thing for me to watch, although it was incredibly painful to see your friend go through something absolutely horrible and horrific, like cancer. And it's just it's not an easy thing to witness, but I knew how much music meant to her, and how much it means to me, and what a gift it was in a lot of ways for both of us, and to keep that fire going as long as we could. And that was something we promised each other. It's like, we're going to make music for as long as we can, and that was it. And there was nothing much more than that. It's like, all right, we're going to do this for as long as it makes sense, and for as long as we can. So that's what we did.
I appreciate you sharing that with me, and I'm sorry for your loss. Ultimately, that's sure was awful and not fun at all. I guess I'll let you continue on with your journey, and I know that you traveled quite a bit after that, and you can speak more about Jenny as much as you'd like and want, of course. So I'm
Sure.
gonna give you the floor to do your thing.
Sure, yeah, after she had died, it was incredibly difficult part of my life, and I decided that I needed to travel and just get new perspectives. At that time, picking up a guitar was not what I needed. It was not, playing music was not something that was bringing me a lot of joy at the time. For quite a few months, it was incredibly difficult to even, you know, play guitar. I
Was that the
couldn't.
only? Not to cut you off, but is that like that? Probably was a maybe. Was that like the only time in God knows how long that you had like said, "I'm taking a break from playing music"?
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like yeah.
And everyone around me, friends and colleagues, and they all knew, what was going on. And they were all just so like, please take the time that you need. All the gig, I canceled all my gigs that I had, all my teaching stuff. I canceled everything. I'm like, until further notice, like, I just need some time. And I'm really glad I gave myself that time. I traveled. I went all around the world. One of my best friends lives in Australia. I went there for almost a month and went to Italy and went to Paris. And I'm like, I'll worry about the credit card bills later. I'll pay all this stuff off. It's like, I need to go inward and see and figure out what my future is going to look and sound like. I didn't know. And I needed that time to grieve and grieve in a way that felt appropriate for me. And it was traveling, and it was seeing the world outside of LA. And, when you lose someone, you lose a friend and a sister, everything reminds you of them. And I know it did for me. Absolutely everything. I mean, to this day, it is still incredibly difficult for me to listen to the Roses and Cigarettes music. It's really hard for me because I remember all of those songs in their infancy and where we were and all that stuff. It's difficult for me, but I'm so incredibly happy that it exists and that people are inspired by the music and still listen to it. And that means a lot to me. But just my personal journey through it's still very difficult. And, yeah, the traveling was incredibly, incredibly helpful. And I did that. And once I got home, it just felt like the right time. Like, oh, I miss this and I need to get back to performing live. So I just called some friends of mine. I'm like, listen, we're going to play at a dive bar in Los Angeles, and we're just going to have some fun. We're going to play covers. I am not putting anything on this. Like, it needs to become something, because I was so not there yet. I'm like, I just want to play and just see if that fire can be reignited, because I didn't know. And once we were on stage, it was very evident to me that this is what I need to do, and how much joy it brought me, and how emotionally lifting that first gig was. And, just surrounded by so many friends who were there and just to support. And it was really beautiful. I'll never forget that. And yeah, I'm driving home and I felt that little spark, and I'm like, okay, let's see.
Is there video
Let's see
of
where this
that
goes.
gig?
Oh my
Or
gosh.
anything?
I mean,
or even
maybe
audio?
like really bad phone, recordings of it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'd have to look. I really don't think so. And I'm like totally okay with that. Because
Yeah.
sometimes those precious moments, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't need to be documented. You know what I mean? Like, I feel it here. I remember what it felt like here in my heart.
But people might appreciate seeing that or hearing that,
Yeah.
especially if they have the context of, now that I have that context, it makes,
Right.
because I certain shows, and even like obviously Jeff Beck just passed away, and like thinking about like his tribute show and knowing that that's for him, it like context makes music more meaningful, even if it doesn't change the structure or the actual music itself in any way, if that makes sense. Like that's part of like me doing this whole thing. I wanted to ask about when you, because it doesn't sound like you had your guitar on your backpacking through Europe or anything, but were you listening to music while you were traveling all over the world? Were you being exposed to other sounds? Like, how did you, because I'm sure you've heard music, even if you weren't actively performing or writing it or anything like that yourself. Do you remember anything, musical memories from traveling?
Yeah, what I did actually, and because of this, I continued to this day. I still do this, where I have a seasonal playlist of songs that are really meaningful. Like, I might be sitting at a restaurant having a really lovely conversation at a meal with a dear friend of mine, and this song will come on, and I'll just be like, oh, that like really is uplifting, and I like this, and I'll add it to that playlist. So I did that during that summer. That I did all that, and then spring, that whole 6 months, whatever it was, where I was traveling, and I had this playlist, and I still listen back to it, and I still feel the things that I felt as I was making it. It's incredible, like how music can be such a multi-sensory thing, and how you can tap into, you can go, and it's just like a little time machine. It's really incredible.
And you can't even articulate, or at least I feel like I
No.
can't articulate those emotions that I was feeling, that I am feeling now. There aren't really words for it. And that's kind of like, I feel like the whole purpose, or one of the whole purposes of music, is to express feelings we can't feel, and to make us feel
Right.
feelings we can't feel. Since I'm a great interviewer, I feel like I'm going backwards now, but you did tell me that you discovered Derek Trucks and Susan at some point, which maybe have been even before or right around your high school and your journey. So like maybe catch me up on when you discovered them,
Yeah.
and then what happened after the that first bar jam. I'll kind of let you bridge those gaps and continue on your journey, and we'll
Sure,
get more into
sure.
TTB and Derek and Susan and all that, and your
Yeah.
album, and I'll try to keep the train moving along.
No, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I remember Derek Trucks, first time I saw him was on the Eric Clapton Crossroads. And I was like, who is this guy? This is incredible. Just how human he sounds when he plays. It's so otherworldly to me. I think slide is such an instrument of its own and a mindset of its own when you're playing guitar. It is so fluid and so incredibly soulful. It's a beautiful way to play, and I'm still a student of it. The song Red River on my new EP, really delves into that slide kind of thing. And it is just so fun how freeing it is, but how incredibly attentive to your ear you need to be when you're playing in this style. It's really beautiful. He is one of my favorite guitar players in the way that he plays, in the way that he leads the band, the way that, again, that ebb and flow, and how all of their records sound, and how that is it's such a beautiful piece of the puzzle of that band. It's so lyrical, it's so human the way he plays. It's incredibly inspiring to me. So that was the first time I saw him and was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about this human. This is great. And I remember the Rolling Stone cover with him and John Frusciante and John Mayer. I remember reading that article quite a bit. Just like, wow, like this guy's and he's incredibly humble too. And it's just such a great player. Susan Tedeschi, I found out about her a little bit later. I was listening, it just happened, listening on Spotify, and it's like songs you might like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard her cover of Don't Think Twice by Bob Dylan. And I just, like, that knocked me to my knees. Like, this is one of the most beautiful versions of the song I've ever heard. And then, really got into her guitar playing and her songwriting, and her voice is so beautiful. And again, just such a presence in that band. And she has such a beautiful, delicate voice, but it can get big, and it can just, it feels like, gosh, it's just got a beautiful texture to it that sounds familiar yet very unique. As a music appreciator and as a listener, I find that her, there are very few voices that really crack into your soul, and I think her voice is one of them. I got to see them play at the Orpheum Theater out here. I believe it was in 2019, and just a great show. It was a great show, and seeing them in a theater like that was just so cool. It was
Yeah, I
great.
was there.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good show.
I don't think I've missed any LA shows for the last
Yeah.
few years. Whenever they make it to the West Coast. And by the way, we're recording this June 8th, and it is Derek Trucks' birthday.
I was gonna say
44th birthday.
yes. Happy birthday, Derek.
Meant to be talking to a guitar player, and of course you play slide as well. I want to ask a little bit more about when did you start playing slide? And you kind of told me a little bit about the challenges and what that's like. But tell me about the early days of learning slide.
What happened was I had dislocated my first finger, and I couldn't really play. It was super swollen. It was bad. And I couldn't play, regularly for about a month. And I'm like, I should probably learn how to play slide. This would be a really great time to just do that and delve into it. So it was a month where I only played slide and really got that, listening to a lot of stuff, a lot of Muddy Waters, like Howlin' Wolf, and a lot of that old blues, and hearing like the inflections of how a slide sounds against strings, and getting those little nuances. how to slide, how to properly slide, how to really get that note that you want, because it's such a delicate touch of being out of tune and being in tune. So it's a delicate balance, and I think it's a lot more about the ear than the hands to me, in playing slide. But yeah, it kind of came out of a, well, I don't want to not play music for a month. I'm going to go ahead and try this, and slide has always been um, such a joy. I really love playing it. It's so much fun. I play in, standard and in open tuning when I play slide, and it's such a beautiful challenge. I'm still a student of it, but man, do I love it. Love playing slide.
That's interesting. Because also Derek, I mean, from what I gather, like obviously he was exposed to the Allman Brothers and Dwayne Allman and all that, but I think he gravitated towards slide a lot when he was really really young as a kid because his hands were small as a kid, and I think it was easier to play slide as opposed to fretting. What happened to your finger there? And was it some kind of divine intervention meant to be to force you
Perhaps,
into slide?
perhaps I haven't thought that deep into it. It just happened, and I'm like, well, if I can't do this, I'm going to try this.
You probably would have tried it at that point, but the fact that you started it then, I mean,
Yeah. It's
you're
probably
that
like
much better at
15
it.
or 16. Yeah, when that happened. Yeah.
Um, where do we go from after Roses and Cigarettes, playing starting to get back into music up until your current release? Tyler, you continue on your
Yeah.
journey and fill it in with Derek and Susan anecdotes and
Love
stories.
it.
I don't know if you've ever met any of them or any the band or anything
I
like that.
I unfortunately have not met them yet. I know I will one day. I have not met them yet.
Oh,
That
I gotta see you on a stage with them, before them, with them, all of that.
You are not the first person to say that. People have listened to the Voices EP and have said, are you looking into opening for them? And I'm like, listen, I will put it out there in the universe because they are one of my favorite bands, and I would be immensely honored to open for them, and just even to be in their presence and hear some stories and stuff. That'd be great too. But yeah, after I got back from that trip and after I did that gig with my band, that was February 2020, and we all know what happened shortly after that. So that time in quarantine during COVID, I I knew I had a story to tell, and then that there were songs there. I just needed to do my due diligence and to dig them up and to craft them and to chip away and find them. So that time during COVID for me is when those songs were written. And it was a beautiful time to be incredibly present and to really hone in on this craft that I wasn't quite sure I could do on my own. It was a challenge for me because for 6 years I was writing songs with Jenny, and I wasn't sure if I could do it on my own. So it was a beautiful way to take that time to see if I could. And I was very proud of myself of the songs that came out. And it was a beautiful thing to witness and to be present in. Again, was really thankful for that time to sit and to be able to do it, and to have just a wonderful group of, a band of brothers, really. That's what I call them, because that's what they are. So the guys, you know, Brett Grossman, he was bass player and he co-produced this with me. Stephen Hawker drums and also co-produced the voices, and then Bobby Victor on keys and Matt LeMayo on harmonica. We had a great time. I gave him the demos. I set up a day at Sunset Sound in Hollywood, and I'm like, all right, it's going to be this day in August in 2022, and we're going to be recording this. And we had one day to do it. And it was so fun. We recorded it live because I have always recorded piece by piece by piece by piece. And I did not want to do that this time. I wanted this to be, all of us in a room looking at each other and, all right, that was the best take. Cool. Next one, and in a really historic place too was really beautiful. And I had done a Kickstarter campaign, and we got the whole thing funded in 10 days. And just incredibly grateful to everyone who pledged to that Kickstarter. We were able to make an EP that we were incredibly proud of, and I got to do it exactly how I wanted to do it, the way I wanted to, with the players that I wanted to, and all the other artists like the awesome Max Crace designed the artwork and, took some killer photos and stuff. And that was a fun couple days in Austin with him. And, Polly Sarah recorded really awesome saxophone. So again, like it was just a community of really great artists coming together to create art. And I will be forever grateful for those, couple weeks of recording. It was a ton of fun.
Very cool. And I love the music, and I've listened to it, and it's right up my alley in terms of the genre and all the things it covers. I mean, you really do cover it all and packs a punch in just a few songs. And just it's soulful, it's funky, it's heartfelt, it's emotional, it's bluesy, it rocks, it really covers it all, and very well produced as well, for sure. Certainly,
it was a fun team.
You can hear all the talent on there.
Oh yeah, and that was really important to me too, because it's not just Angela Petrilli; it's Angela Petrilli and the Players, and these guys are very seriously awesome musicians that I am grateful. Say yes when I tell them, hey, there's a gig, and do you want to play, and do you want to be a part of this? I'm just thankful that they said yes. And it was really important to me that we all had our moments on this EP, because they're just, again, such fantastic musicians. And such a shout out to Brett and Steven for, really producing such a beautiful EP with me. And the three of us together, it was a really fun team to work on this together on that production side. And it was a ton of fun.
Yeah. I can't believe I've only discovered you somewhat recently. I know. Where have I been? But like, you were just recently in Guitar Player magazine feature. That's super cool.
It was incredible, very incredible, very beyond words for me. I remember, getting that magazine as a kid and going every month and reading about all the great players that, have inspired me, and to be in that magazine and, in a magazine with David Gilmour on the cover for the 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon is pretty damn cool. So immensely grateful for that. And again, thanks to the folks at GP and Joe for, having me involved. Very grateful. Very, very grateful.
Very cool stuff. It sounds like I can tell you have the right attitude about it. Like, you love the craft, and that's what you focus on, and becoming and learning the most, and you're a sponge for knowledge. But at the same time, you're also able to recognize the successes, appreciate them, and whatnot. So that's like super, super cool, and I think important as well and you have a lot of gratitude as well. And I think that's great as well.
Absolutely. Sure. I've seen a lot of stuff, and when you watch someone full of life, move on to the next realm, it makes you really appreciate life. And I know that I really carry the torch, and I'm thankful to have a body that works and a heart that beats, and I don't need to tell it to. And I'm here on this world for a purpose. So if I can make some good music in the meantime and bring a little joy into someone's life who listens to the music, I'm all about it.
Good stuff all around. And I'm glad I've had the chance to see you perform live. That was quite something. I walked in there, I'm like, damn. and then I'm like, this person probably likes Susan and Derek. This person's probably into this kind of stuff. And from there, started to talk a little more. So I definitely appreciate your music and your time. I feel like I've taken up a lot of it already. Anything else you want to mention or talk about, TTB or any of your musical journey?
That new album's pretty rockin'. What an incredible album.
Plugs are good too. I'm getting to that.
Man, what an incredible that Moon album. I mean, for me, Revelator's probably.
Oh, you're talking about TTB.
I'm talking about TTB. I'm talking about TTB. No, I'm talking about TTB. Revelator's one of my favorites. And I remember driving through Nashville, and that was the album that was on, for me. But yeah, killer stuff. Just love them. But yeah, as you can find my, all my social media, and go to my website, angelapetrillimusic.com. You can stream my EP, The Voices, anywhere you stream music. We're also on Bandcamp, so if you want to help out the fellow indie musician, you can go and check it out there. I got signed posters on there too. It was a photo that Max Crace took, so he designed the album cover for The Voices, and 50% of the proceeds are going to breast cancer research. So if you get a signed poster, half the money is going to that charity. So to Medivivor. So yeah, it's good stuff. And we'll be in Nashville the week of June 19th. So swing by. Tour dates are on my website.
Oh, you are doing it. Very exciting stuff. Touring around, playing locally here for me, recording new music and putting it out there. You're making it happen. And inspiring. Your story's inspiring, and I love the music, and I'm looking forward to just listening over and over again, because the way I sometimes don't even listen to or as closely or even digest or ingest lyrics until like I've listened to a song like 30 times, or sometimes even years later. You should post the lyrics or post all the guitar chords in the tab and all that. I'll probably end up start like playing some of these songs and dive into that.
They're all easy. They're easy.
That's my hope.
Yeah, they're easy tunes. I don't think there's more than 6 chords in these songs. So yeah.
But you play them beautifully and sing them beautifully, and there's a lot of nuance with yourself, how you play the music and sing, and same thing with the rest of your musicians that you play with and have recorded with, and that I cannot duplicate. But yeah, I can play maybe 4 or 5 chords.
There you go. That's all you need.
In my own style, and add a key vocals and all that. But it's all fun for sure. I definitely appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Perform. Oh, of course. Yeah, let's talk more soon, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. This was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you again, Angela. So there you go. Episode 120 with Angela Petrilli. Really appreciate her taking the time and for sharing at times her really personal journey with me. It means a lot. I can't wait to see her play live again soon. I do need the music in my life, certainly the live music, more of it. Anyway, hope everyone is doing okay out there. Please check out @Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. Please be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or whichever way you listen to this episode. Positive reviews on Apple Podcasts are appreciated. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast is the YouTube channel. Please subscribe there. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter, adamchoit.com for all my personal stuff, TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com. For all that's the band's official website. Definitely check that out. Buy merch, buy tickets to shows, join the Swamp Family fan club. Good stuff on there as well. Thank you to Tedeschi Trucks Band, to Angela, to Tedeschi Trucks Band's crew, and to all the listeners and fans. I appreciate all the support on that front. But I think that's about all I got for today. I know Tedeschi Trucks Band is hitting the road soon, so I'm going to look to do a recap soon as well. Probably of their first 3 shows, I'm thinking next Sunday, but there'll be more on that soon, as for sure. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate it, and let's talk soon. Peace.